Okay, everyone?
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to today's webinar, where we discuss a critical and fast evolving challenge for India's engineering goods sector. The 50% tariff hike on foreign steel and aluminum by the US is starting June 4, which is tomorrow. With over 5 billion worth of engineering exports tied to these materials, Trump's move threatens to disrupt long-standing trade equations, derail pricing structures, and challenge the competitiveness of Indian exporters in one of their key markets. To unpack these implications, explore possible trade remedies, and share on-ground perspectives, we are today joined by Dr. Sound Ray, Senior Fellow at the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations, Mr. Pankaj Chadda, Chairman of Industry Body EEPC India, and Akash Shah, ED, NIFA Group. So coming to you, Mr. Pankaj, how severe is this evolving situation according to you? And what is EEPC's immediate response to these steep tariffs?
Well, we have $5 billion exports to in under this chapter 72, 73, and 76, which is under this additional 25% duty. And our total exports of engineering to USA is $19.1 billion. So it's roughly, this is about 25% of engineering exports. And I must start by saying extremely unfortunate that when BTA talks are going on, and they are going on, from what I hear in the public domain, very smoothly and close to a first leg of finalization, of early tranche, as they call it, there was no need to get into an area which creates complications for the existing negotiations, and makes it extremely difficult for the negotiators to forge ahead with a final agreement. So yes, it's a cause of concern. $5 billion at stake, 25% additional duty. It's something which could have well been avoided, but I guess we have to face it as it comes. The notification is not yet out, so I still feel maybe wiser counsel may prevail, and the notification may have something different for us. But let's see as it comes.
Okay, okay. Now we would like to come to you, ma'am. What is the broader signal from Trump's 50% tariff? Is this a WTO compliant move or a violation of global norms? How do you see it? And also, do you see this sparking reciprocal actions from other trading nations?
Right. Yeah, so definitely the policy that we are seeing, it's like an industrial policy, except that it is a very protectionist industrial policy, and it's the putting America first. It is under the aegis of that, and this clearly violates all the principles of global trading norms that we have been seeing. And it would lead to basically restructuring of value chains. It would lead to abandoning the multilateral world trading system that we are. So it is, in fact, there is some precedence that this is not WTO compatible. If you remember that during President Trump's earlier presidency, there was a similar kind of a tariff that he had put on steel and aluminum goods, and that has WTO had found that unlawful. And basically, the he this has been put under Section 232, citing national security, which it was struck down that by WTO, that this cannot be in one of those kinds of items. Plus, it is also a violation of the basic principle of WTO, basically because all countries have agreed to certain bound rates, and this is clearly in violation of the bound rates that US has agreed on as part of the WTO. we may see a risk of retaliation by not only countries affected. We may see that across, countries like the EU, Canada, Mexico, even South Korea might retaliate. So definitely, this is going to be a very, very if it goes ahead, it might be lead to a lot of confusion, chaos, and basically economic turmoil in the multilateral trading system.
Okay, sure. Uh, Mr. Akash, uh,
Yes.
from your company's perspective, how has been these duties change your cost structure and competitiveness for your US bound shipments? And can you share how much of your cost per ton has gone up since March?
Sure. Mr. Khan, thank you for this question. And, I would speak about it from my perspective and also all the MSMEs out there. So, our cost competitiveness is definitely getting eroded, but our cost structure is not changing on our shores. What's happening is that when the product reaches the American shores, that's when instead of 25% duty, now it'll all of a sudden become 50%. So yes, the Indian product will be more expensive by that much. Now, how much will it impact me? It basically depends on customer to customer and also the ability of the Indian exporter, which is very little to absorb this cost. Given that there is upward trend in steel prices in the country, even if an Indian exporter wants to give some relief to their the customers in the US, the ability is very slim because we are getting, I would say, put into a box from both ends. Duties are being increased in the US on one end, and the prices of steel are increasing. And all other input costs are increasing in India at the other end. So yes, I don't think I can give you a per ton figure because it varies from product to product, but definitely there will be a lot of challenges in the days to come.
Noted. Sure. Mr. Chadha, how are these tariffs likely to affect ongoing India-US trade negotiations? Or, in your view, should India push for a UK-style tariff exemptions in our BTA talks with the US?
Well, the US negotiators are in India this week. I think there's negotiations on 5th and 6th. This is what my understanding is. And we are asking the government that kindly place this in front of this new tariff come in as a specific point and a major point to discuss in the BTA. And we are asking for exemption under 232, similar to the deal that the UK has got. We feel that if America can give UK exemption under 232, I'm sure our relationship with America is very good. The personal chemistry of the two leaders is also very good. So I guess we should definitely at least seek for similar exemption that the UK has got.
Okay. So you are optimistic about this.
Well, I'm always optimistic.
Mrs. Ray, in your view as an international trade expert, can India really negotiate exemptions like what the UK did? Is that realistic?
I think we have to see, we can hopefully negotiate it as Mr. Chadha has pointed out. But we have to keep in mind two things. One is that, again, referring back to President Trump's earlier presidency, in 2018, India was, they had not found India to be a reasonably close ally. And this is something that could be a bit of concern. It will actually boil down on how much access we are willing to provide in other goods, say electric vehicles or agricultural products, which they have been asking for, vis-a-vis what kind of exemptions we can ask from them. There is also things like, they want a certain things like data localization and IP and investment rules, but are we actually ready to actually offer those kinds of things? The other thing to keep in mind is that the deal that the UK has struck with the US is a very limited kind of a deal. It is not a trade agreement in the sense that usually trade agreements are negotiated, which in fact, take a very long time. This is a specific list of goods which the two countries have agreed to limit their duty increases. So whether it is realistic or not, I mean, I would also hope that it is. But we have to basically be able to offer them something in lieu of the exemptions. If we can, I think then it can work out.
Okay, okay. And ma'am, what kind of leverage does India really have in this ongoing BTA? What are the specific strengths of India? Do you think India should capitalize?
The foremost strength is that both countries want to limit the powers of China in some sense. So both countries want to strategically decouple from China. So that could be a very common kind of a ground. The other very important ground for India is the big market that India enjoys. And so market access to US products could act really as a leverage for India.
Mhm. Sure. Mr. Shah, now we want to know from you, are US buyers pushing back on pricing or renegotiating contracts? And are you holding back shipments or stockpiling inventory to wait for a possible tariff waiver? And if so, for how long can you sustain this approach? And are you also looking at non-US markets? What will be those markets?
Sure. So I'll answer both these questions one by one. Yes, US buyers are trying to renegotiate. And it's only up to an extent that we as exporters, we don't have a lot of margins because the world is a very competitive landscape, and we do not have that much of margins to offer. Number one. Number two, the worst thing is that our American customers, who've always been a very America has been a very direct and clear-minded nation. They know what they want and they know what price they want, but even they are in a state of limbo. So they are also not clear. They are saying, okay, let's discuss it in a couple of weeks time. So anything which they really need, anything for which they have confirmed orders moving ahead, or anything for which they have an ability to or they will be penalized, those are the only areas where they are executing the contracts. Otherwise they are asking us to wait, and that is definitely causing delays. But on the point that Ms. Ray mentioned, I really think India stands a very good chance of seeking waiver in this BTA because in Section 232, India is only 1.5% of the US imports of steel, and similarly 5.4% of all of the steel products that US imports comes from India, and similarly 2.9% of aluminum. So from that perspective, giving this waiver or concession to India does not hurt US and make in US and make America great again so much. So if we are able to as a nation play the card right, we would be in a position to be able to get this waiver is my hope. And as Mr. Chadda said, I really think that the government has a good chance of doing this. And also, second question about which non-US markets are we targeting? Look, as businessmen, we want the whole world to be a market, and we are targeting. But we all know that America is our largest trade partner, and also to make meaningful dent in any new market for exporters, it takes anything between 3 to 5 years. So even if we started 6 months back or a year back, we are a long way off from being able to meaningfully offset any of the export losses we incur because of the entire the tariff scenario.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Chedda, in your view, how can Indian exporters de-risk from these US market upheavals?
See, as I said, it's US is our biggest market, and as Mr. Akash has also said, we have it's 17% of our market, and for engineering products also it's around the same figure, 17 to 20%. We have to de-risk. There is no option to that. So the question is, where do we de-risk? We have to go down south of America, basically Central America, Latin America. We have to go into those countries because those countries are still relatively, maybe I would say, where the Chinese influence is not that big, and we would try and do that. Then we are looking at Ghana region, the West Africa region, North Africa region. These are the regions that we have in mind. These are the regions which we will definitely pursue. But as I said, it's not something which can be like a switch off and a switch on button. So we have to do a concerted effort to do it. We have to do it anyway because now we realize that US cannot be as trusted a partner as what we thought it would be. and it's a good wake up call for all of us. So I guess we will have to do it, and where the process is ongoing. And I think regardless of whatever duties finally we get numbered down to, we will. This process is now irreversible. We will de-risk ourselves from the U.S. market.
Mhm. And so, is EEPC engaging with the Commerce Ministry on this issue? Uh, if yes, how?
We are
And what
engaging
kind of government
everything.
support? Yes, what kind of government support do engineering exporters need right now? What are the one or two things that should government look at?
See, as far as engaging with the government, we are in constant touch. We are providing all the necessary data that they want. We are giving our wish list, the offense list, what we feel we should do it. We have agreed to, as far as the engineering section is concerned, a zero duty. A zero for zero, we have already agreed to. I think if auto components also part of it sits in engineering. So in auto components also we have agreed to zero to zero. So that's the best that we can offer as far as the duty aspect is concerned. As far as benefits from the government is concerned, I fiscally the government does not have that much of elbow room to give any specific fiscal benefit. The usual benefits we have definitely for in this we have asked in the MAI scheme to give us a substantial amount of funds so that what happens is as we realize engineering is 60% MSMEs. So for an
Mm,
MSME to go into a new market, especially these markets like Latin America, which are far off, it's expensive to travel. It's expensive to just do a tour just on a cold call. So therefore, we have asked
mm,
at least in the MEI scheme to give us more funds so that we can have buyer seller meets, which can we can carry our MSME exporters to these so-called difficult nations and showcase their brand and showcase brand India also. So that's one aspect where the government can definitely help us. And as far as the fact is that since we are talking about Latin America, the voyage times are more than 60 days. We have definitely asked that basically a interest equalization scheme for MSME, wherein they can give us a three. It was there till 31st of December. They can give us a 3% off the bank borrowing, and it definitely has helped our MSMEs be more competitive in their cost of borrowing. These are the two things that I can see feasible and immediately workable.
okay, okay. On similar lines, Mrs. Ray, what will be your message to the affected stakeholders? What should they be doing right now? Also, is it time for India to lean more into regional trade blocks or FTAs?
Yeah. I think, as Mr. Chadda mentioned, we are already doing some of those things, diversifying export markets, engaging with the government. But it is also important to monitor the regulatory signals which are coming out, because every other country is also getting impacted, and how they are also behaving. We need to understand that. So, greater engagement with the government and trade bodies is definitely needed. um, we can also use this as an opportunity to increase our competitiveness, but that can only happen in the long run. In the short run, that is very difficult to do, as Mr. Shah pointed out. This is also an opportunity, of course, to engage more regionally. And there are regional arrangements. We are already part of ASEAN. We can actually use that, leverage that more, build up the regional value chains, or get more integrated into those value chains. Because this will help basically, in a diversifying, secondly building resilience, so that you can better prepare to handle any kinds of shocks. Not only this kind of shock, we've had other shocks like COVID also before this, where greater regional integration could have helped us.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Mr. Shah, what operational changes are you making to maintain your margins at the moment?
uh, you can't do anything. Well, how can you make operational changes to offset 25% of tariffs? So pretty much what I can tell you is that as an MSME exporter, and as our brethren, which constitute a very large percentage of engineering exports in the country, what we need as a community is some support from the government, which Mr. Chadda set out in terms of interest equalization and marketing support for new markets. But on the manufacturing side, because you asked Mr. Khan, uh, Indian manufacturing needs to get competitive, and those manufacturing have to be beyond the large MNCs and the large entities. So government should come out with a scheme which allows MSMEs to adopt 5S. It should allow some kind of an ability for them to get technology upgradation, and thereby making them a lot more viable on the international stage. So that's the only thing I have to say.
Is downward value addition something which you are looking at uh, to boost your operational expenses or to cut down on operational expenses?
Rephrase that. I'm sorry, I was not able to fully
Uh,
understand the question.
is downward value addition in your goods is one area where you are focusing now?
We can, but you have to also realize that an engineering exporter has a very large percentage of its BOM cost as steel. And our steel is fundamentally for exporters. It's not available at competitive price in comparison to say a Vietnamese or a Chinese steel product manufacturer. So we can make downward downstream improvements. We can make operational efficiencies in place, but that will be like putting in drops to fill a bucket. So that won't really solve the problem that we have at hand.
Okay, okay. And if the government could grant you one quick relief, for example, duty waiver or credit line or any other help, like a subsidy of some sort, what would help you most right now?
Some kind of support for accessing new markets. So, as Mr. Chadda mentioned, going into, say, a Vana region is an expensive proposition. And so, allowing exporters to explore new markets with good potential where we have good bilateral treaties and there's good potential for exports. So, enabling exporters by way of EP councils such as EPC India to access new markets to de-risk ourselves from one country, that is America.
And lastly, to everyone, one common question: any other thoughts, and how do you see this crisis evolving in future? Do you see this being resolved in near future? How? What kind of timeline do you see? Or do you expect more of Trump's uh, these antics? Message, Pankaj. Firstly, this is for you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, first let's see the notification. I'm sure there is going to be a lot of pushback from the domestic markets in USA. We must realize that, let's say, in steel, USA imports 25% of their requirement. They only manufacture domestically 75%. So 25% is a fairly large item to import. And if the cost goes up by 50%, it definitely is going to hit the domestic market and affect their cost competitiveness. As far as aluminium is concerned, it's even far more skewed. They make 25% in America and they import 75%. So you can imagine their import component is 75% of their total requirement. Aluminium and steel plants are not something that can be set up overnight. Even if you want to make in America, I think I would give a minimum timeline of 4 to 5 years for any decent sized plant to come up. By which time the next US president is on the seat. So I don't I personally feel that wiser sense will prevail when the domestic market rates go up, their domestic sort of economy is troubled, and the local people or the domestic audience pushes Mr. Trump to rethink on what should be the correct tariff number. I see that happening, and that's the main thing I have in mind, and I hope that it happens quicker than
Okay.
later.
Mrs. Ray, do you also see that this the Trump versus globalization or Trump versus WTO this fight continue in the near future, or do you think then there's an end to it in near future?
Right. No, so there are two things. For example, the reciprocal tariffs have been found to be illegal by a US court itself. The other matter is that some of these, the Section 232 is again not WTO compliant, as I've already said. So this kind of the tussle between either the domestic courts or the WTO will continue. Countries will probably retaliate depending. For example, Japan has said it will not retaliate against any of the reciprocal tariffs. So countries will take different positions depending on their domestic situation. In the meantime, during this 90-day phase, if many of these bilateral deals do work out, so then there'll be some exemptions, at least for, in the similar to the UK deal that the US has sought. So hopefully we will work out, India will work out the deal with US in the meantime, so that we, at least on some of these goods, at least there will be concessions. And given the importance of the US for our exports, I think if we work out a deal, it'll be beneficial for us, definitely.
Mr. Shah, your take on how do you see this panning out in future?
So, Mr. Khan, firstly, I think deglobalization as a phenomena is here to stay. Not only US, every country that we see around is wanting to increase, manufacturing within their own country, and that's because of the increasing number of requirement for jobs. So that's something that's here to stay, and as a nation, we need to grapple with it. And we are actually in a much better position than most, given the fact that we have a large market for ourselves. But on the other hand, talking about this particular scenario of with the US, I think the ball is more in the court of our political leaders, because this is something that we businessmen or we industrialists cannot solve on our own. And I'm very, very confident that under the leadership of our Commerce Minister and our Prime Minister, a political solution to this would be made available, where India is better off than our biggest competitor in this space, which is China. And if that happens, by and large, Indian engineering industry can still thrive.
Sure, sure. We hope so. Uh, so this brings us to the end of this session. We thank all the panelists for their valuable insights. As global trade dynamics shift, it's clear that industry voices like yours will be central to shaping India's response. We'll continue tracking these developments closely through this challenging phase. Until next time, goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
You may leave the studio. There is a button there.